There are growing health concerns in relation to the COVID-19 vaccines, and there is new data out which we can examine. NBC News spoke with Tom Shimabukuro, Deputy Director of the Center for Disease Control's Immunization Safety Office, and he spoke about how males under 30 may face heart complications after receiving a full shot. He noted that overall 226 cases of myocarditis or pericarditis after the vaccination in young people under the age of 30 have been confirmed. He did note that further investigation is needed to confirm whether the vaccination was the cause of the heart problem. The article noted that normally fewer than 100 cases would be expected for this age group. Teenagers and people in their early 20s accounted for more than half of the myocarditis cases reported to the CDC's safety monitoring systems following the vaccination. This is despite them only representing a fraction of the people who have received the shots. Shimabukuro said that we clearly have an imbalance there. Let's break down what myocarditis and pericarditis are. Myocarditis is the inflammation of the tissue in the middle layer of the heart. The Mayo Clinic have noted that possible effects include heart failure, heart attack or stroke, arrhythmias, and sudden cardiac death. Pericarditis is the inflammation or swelling of the outer lining of the heart. The Mayo Clinic say that the most common symptom is chest pain. The CDC announced that the confirmed cases occurred mostly in male adolescents and young adults 16 and older, and they more often occur after getting the second dose of the vaccine. They typically occur within several days of the vaccination. The CDC also said that patients usually return to their normal daily activities after symptoms improve, but they should consult their doctor before returning to exercise or sports. There are more broad concerns with the vaccine outside of the heart problems. Fox News America host Tucker Carlson cited a Norwegian study which was conducted of 100 nursing home residents who died after receiving Pfizer's corona shots. They found that at least 10 of those deaths were likely caused by the vaccine. Carlson also interviewed Dr. Robert Malone. Now, Malone is one of the creators of the mRNA technology, which was used to produce these vaccines. Keep in mind that this mRNA vaccine technology has never been used in humans before. Malone said that one of my concerns are that government is not being transparent with us about what those risks are. And so, I am of the opinion that people have the right to decide whether to accept the vaccines or not, especially since these are experimental vaccines. He pointed to the fact that vaccines are not formally approved yet, but instead are being administered under emergency use authorization. Malone said that in case of younger Americans, he has a bias that the benefits probably don't outweigh the risk in that cohort. But he noted there is no substantive risk-benefit analysis being applied to the vaccines. Well, we'll get to that in a moment because there has been a new study published which does relate to that topic. But before that, the British Medical Journal released an assessment titled, "Should we be worried about reports of myocarditis and pericarditis after the mRNA vaccines?" The BMJ pointed out that the CDC said there was a likely association between the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines and myocarditis and pericarditis in some young adults. They also noted that after 3,625,574 second doses administered to men aged 18 to 24, there were 233 reports of myocarditis or pericarditis, when 2 to 25 would have been expected. For women, after 5,237,262 doses in the age group, 27 cases were seen, against an expected range of 2 to 18. Vinay Prasad, a hematologist, oncologist, and associate professor in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at the University of California, San Francisco, told the BMJ, "There is a clear and large safety signal in young men and a clear but small signal in young women as well." It is important to note that despite this, the CDC still recommends getting vaccinated. The Australian Government Department of Health also stresses that all vaccines are thoroughly tested for safety before they are approved for use in Australia. I mentioned that Dr. Malone said there is no substantive risk-benefit study out yet, while last week the first peer-reviewed study titled "The Safety of the COVID-19 Vaccinations, We Should Rethink the Policy" was released. I will read some excerpts from this study. In the course of the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, new regulatory frameworks were put in place that allowed for the expedited review of data and admission of new vaccines without safety data. Many of the new vaccines use completely new technologies that have never been used in humans before. The rationale for this action was that the pandemic was such a ubiquitous and dangerous threat that it warrants exceptional measures. As these vaccines have never been tested for their safety in prospective post-marketing surveillance studies, we thought it useful to determine the effectiveness of the vaccines and to compare them with the cost in terms of side effects. They calculated the absolute risk difference to be 0.00006 for preventing one death after 3 to 4 weeks. They had a 95% confidence interval within the range from 9,000 to 50,000. This means that between 9,000 and 50,000 people would need to be vaccinated, with a point estimate of roughly 16,000 to prevent one COVID-19 related death. In the case of the Moderna vaccine, we would have to vaccinate 3,050 people to prevent one death. And in the case of the Pfizer vaccine, we would need to vaccinate 6,150 people to prevent one death. They found around 16 cases will develop severe adverse reactions from COVID-19 vaccinations, and approximately 4 people will die from the consequences of being vaccinated per 100,000 vaccinations delivered. They found that for every 6 deaths prevented by vaccination, we may incur 4 deaths as a consequence of or associated with the vaccination. Simply put, as we prevent 3 deaths by vaccinating, we incur 2 deaths. Now, this isn't saying for every 3 people who get vaccinated, there will be 2 people who die. Rather, it is that for every 3 people who get vaccinated who would have died, 2 people die. They go on to pose the question, is this few or many? This is difficult to say, and the answer is dependent on one's view of how severe the pandemic is, and whether the common assumption that there is hardly any innate immunological defense or cross-reactional immunity is true. They go on to cite some inherent limitations of their data, but say that the regulatory studies compensate for some of the weaknesses, and thereby generate a somewhat more beneficial risk-benefit ratio. In the end, they say, currently our estimates show that we have to accept 4 fatal and 16 serious side effects per 100,000 vaccinations in order to save the lives of 2 to 11 individuals per 100,000 vaccinations, placing risks and benefits on the same order of magnitude. So in other words, it appears the cost-benefit ratio of getting the vaccine is not too favorable, especially if you are young and healthy and would not likely be affected by the virus anyway.